All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something pretty special, a really detailed proposal, a blueprint, if you will, for a total transformation of Sri Lankan cricket. We're talking about taking a system that's been struggling and turning it into a real powerhouse.
So here's what we've got on the agenda. We're going to start with the why. Why is this change even needed? Then we'll look at 3 different ways they could go about it. And you'll definitely want to stick around for the last part, because that's where we see how they actually plan to use all 3 models in one seriously smart long-term plan.
Okay, so let's get right to it. Why do we even need a new structure? Well, the document we're looking at is pretty blunt about it. It basically says the current system just isn't working anymore. There are some serious, deep-seated problems that are calling for a complete overhaul.
But before you can design a new system, you got to challenge some old assumptions, right? And this proposal kicks off by asking a really big question, one that you hear all the time in sports.
And the answer might surprise you. Turns out, in sports, having a giant population to pick from isn't really the key to being the best. It's not the magic bullet everyone thinks it is. Performance just doesn't correlate that strongly with population size.
So you might be asking, if it's not about how many people you have, then what does make a team great? Well, the proposal zeroes in on a few key things. You've got stuff like genetic advantages in certain areas, a really strong sports culture with a good structure to back it up, and, you guessed it, strong financial backing. That's what really moves the needle.
All right, so now that we've cleared that up, let's get into the real meat of this proposal. We're going to look at 3 different models for how to transform the whole system. So, we've got 3 options on the table. The first one is pretty straightforward. 9 teams, 1 for each province. The second one groups districts into 5 big clusters. And the third one is a kind of hybrid, mixing those clusters with the premier clubs that already exist.
So let's start with Model 1, the provincial approach. This one is exactly what it sounds like. You take the country's administrative map and you create 1 cricket team for each province.
Nice and clean.
And you can see that vision laid out right here. It's a direct, 1-to-1 match. 9 provinces, 9 teams. It's a structure that aligns perfectly with the country's administrative map.
So what's good about this? Well, it would give more opportunities to players in rural areas, and travel would be a lot easier. But there are some major downsides. For one, the Western Province team would probably just dominate everybody. Plus, the initial investment needed? It's huge. And you definitely get a lot of pushback from people who don't want to see that kind of change.
Okay, so those challenges with the first model lead us to the second option, the 5-cluster system. This one takes a different route entirely. Instead of 9 teams, it consolidates things down into 5 big, powerful clusters.
And you can see how they've grouped the districts here. The whole idea is to create 5 more balanced hubs, to spread the talent out a little more evenly, and hopefully make the competition a lot more intense. Now, this model also has some good things going for it. Good for rural players, easier travel to those regional hubs. But you're still looking at a pretty big price tag, and there's still a worry that the Western Province might dominate. Plus, there's a new concern. Some of the top players from Colombo might actually lose their spots.
All right, that brings us to the third and final model, and this one's pretty clever. It's a hybrid. It takes that 5-cluster idea but does something really smart. It works the existing premier clubs right into the new system.
So you can see here, you still have the 5 clusters, but now the 30 premier clubs are spread out among them. And this is the key difference. It's not about replacing the old system, it's about building on it. It integrates the clubs instead of getting rid of them.
And the benefits here are huge. Because you're not trying to tear everything down, there's going to be a lot less resistance to this change. It's also way cheaper to get started. You could basically make the first-class tournament more competitive right away. The big trade-off, it probably doesn't open up as many doors for rural players, at least not at first.
So that's the setup. 3 different models, each with its own set of strengths and weaknesses, which of course leads us to the big million-dollar question.
So if you had to pick, which one is better? Do you go for Model 1, which opens things up for everyone? Or Model 2, for a more balanced competition? Or do you play it safe with the low-risk approach of Model 3?
Well, this is the part of the plan that I think is absolutely brilliant. The answer isn't to pick just one. It's to use all of them.
And you're probably thinking, wait, how's that work? And you're right, you can't do them all at once. The answer is, you don't. You phase them in.
And this is the real masterstroke, the phased implementation plan. Check this out. Phase 1 kicks off around 2026. You start with Model 3. Why? Because it's the path of least resistance. It's low cost, gets everyone on board, and boosts competition immediately. Then, once that's working well, say around 2029, you move into Phase 2. You transition to Model 2, the 5-cluster system. This starts to create more opportunities for a wider pool of players as the system gets stronger. And finally, after 2032, you enter Phase 3. This is the long-term goal, evolving into Model 1, the 9-province system. By that point, the hope is that the infrastructure and the culture are mature enough to support this wide-open system. It's not a quick fix, it's a patient, step-by-step journey.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second and look at the big picture here. What does this long-term vision really mean?
So the most important thing to take away from all this is that this isn't about flipping a switch. It's a strategic journey. It starts with a low-risk move to get some early wins, and then it slowly and deliberately builds towards this bigger, long-term goal of maximum opportunity for everyone.
And that leaves us with a really interesting final thought. Could this blueprint, this idea of a phased, patient transformation, be a model for other sports or even other countries that are trying to rebuild from the ground up? It's definitely something to think about.